Okay, let's just dive right into the ultimate master blueprint of existence. Today, we're unpacking St. Thomas Aquinas' absolute 13th century epic, the Summa Theologica. And look, I know what you might be thinking. This isn't just some dusty old book. It's actually a meticulously structured architectural plan of reality itself. We're going to explore it together today to answer some of the absolute biggest, most profound questions humanity has literally ever asked. You know, stuff like where everything came from, why it's so wildly diverse, and where the shadows in our world actually originate.
So we are taking a top-down metaphysical journey today in this explainer. Here's our roadmap. We'll hit 1, the ultimate first cause, 2, creation out of nothing, 3, the beginning of time, 4, the purpose of inequality, and finally 5, the illusion of evil. We're going to start directly from the mind of God and zoom all the way into the stark reality of evil.
Okay, section 1, the ultimate first cause, the architect's blueprint. Let's start with our first really big question. How does Aquinas logically establish God as the ultimate architect of the entire universe? He doesn't just say, well, God made it, and that's that. No, he breaks it down into 3 distinct, incredibly powerful causes.
And this brilliantly illustrates that God isn't just the maker acting as the efficient cause, just pulling the levers of reality. He also contains the master ideas, the actual architectural plans themselves, acting as what Aquinas calls the exemplar cause. And finally, he acts as the final cause. That means he's the ultimate goodness that all things inherently desire and move toward. So basically, God is the builder, pulling the levers, the blueprint holding the master ideas, and the ultimate destination we all desire, all happening at once. It's the whole shebang.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that everything else in the universe only has existence by participating in God's ultimate being. Aquinas gives us a really fantastic image for this. Imagine a piece of cold, dark iron. It only becomes glowing hot and ignited by participating in a fire, right? Well, in the exact same way, you, me, the stars, we only have our existence because we are actively participating in the absolute, self-subsisting being of God.
But how exactly did the first cause bring this universe into existence? Now that we know who the grand architect is, and we know he holds the blueprints, we really have to ask how the building was actually constructed. For centuries, ancient philosophers really struggled to grasp this, mostly because they kind of just assumed the physical building blocks of the universe had just always been there. But Aquinas introduces a truly radical concept here that totally upended how we understand reality.
Which brings us to section 2, creation out of nothing, making something from absolute zero. Let's move to this idea and see how it builds into Aquinas' specific, highly rigorous definition of what creation actually means. Because in the Summa Theologica, creation isn't just a loose word. It's a very specific, technical term. What's really fascinating here is that Aquinas defines creation not as a change or, a mere reshaping of existing materials. He defines it as the emanation of all being produced entirely from not being, from absolute nothing, like literally nothing. It is bringing entire substances into existence from absolute zero. Think about the sheer contrast between these two concepts. Natural generation requires a subject to work on. Think of an artist making a statue. They absolutely need the pre-existing brass or marble to carve into shape, right? But divine creation requires zero pre-existing potentiality at all. Because creating the totality of a being all out of an absolute void requires bridging an infinite gap. Aquinas argues it demands an infinite power. Only a universal cause can do this. It's a real game changer.
Aquinas grounds his incredible logic in this powerful interpretation or gloss on the book of Genesis. By proving that only an infinite power can bridge the infinite gap between nothing and something, he proves that only God, as the most universal cause, can perform an act of this immense magnitude. No angel, no human, no force of nature can truly create in this strict sense.
Moving on to section 3, the beginning of time, when the clock started. So, with the universe brought into being from absolute zero, our third big question asks, when exactly did the clock start ticking? Was the universe always here, or did it have a definitive starting point? Surprisingly, Aquinas actually admits that human reason alone cannot mathematically or logically prove the universe had a definitive start. While philosophy can totally prove God is the cause of the world, God could have, theoretically, caused an eternal world. Therefore, knowing that the world actually had a beginning is not something we arrive at through a neat scientific formula. Rather, it's something we know strictly through divine revelation.
Following this timeline leads us to a seriously mind-bending reality. God doesn't exist in a long stretch of time before the universe. God exists in eternity, outside of time completely. Creation didn't happen inside a pre-existing ticking clock. Instead, time itself, which is just the measure of movement, was created simultaneously with heaven and earth. There was no before time. Time started exactly when the universe did. Crazy to think about, right?
All right, Section 4, the purpose of inequality, the grand design of diversity. Now we arrive at a very modern existential dilemma. If we have a perfect, singular, deeply good God who built everything from nothing, why on earth did he create such a messy universe filled with so much inequality and difference? Aquinas' answer to this is just brilliant. He notes that God's divine goodness is so perfectly infinite and vast that absolutely no single created thing could ever adequately reflect it alone. If God only created one perfectly uniform thing, the universe would actually be less perfect because it wouldn't reflect the manifold richness of its creator. Therefore, God deliberately designed this massive hierarchy of varying perfections. You have purely spiritual angels, humans bridging the spiritual and material, down through animals, plants, and basic elements. Aquinas argues that, well, just as a perfect house needs both a sturdy, unglamorous foundation and a beautiful, high-reaching roof, the universe fundamentally requires inequality and diverse grades of goodness to be whole and complete. And yet, despite this massive, unequal diversity spanning from purely spiritual angels all the way down to dirt and elements, Aquinas logically proves there is only one world. It's perfectly unified by its incredible interlocking order. All these distinct, unequal things relate dynamically to each other, functioning like a single living organism that ultimately points right back to God. Which brings us to Section 5, the illusion of evil, the shadow in the system. Okay, so if God is perfectly good and he made a perfectly ordered, beautifully diverse world out of nothing, where on earth does evil fit into this blueprint? When we ask this provocative question, is evil a distinct nature or a substance, our modern minds, and perhaps our cultural conditioning, usually expect a medieval thinker like Aquinas to point immediately to demons, dark physical forces, or an equal and opposite anti-god. But actually, scratch that. He subverts our expectations entirely. Quoting the ancient philosopher Dionysius, Aquinas argues that since every being, every form, and every nature is inherently good because it was created by God, evil cannot actually be a thing. It literally cannot be a created substance. There's no such thing as an evil atom or an evil foundational element. Instead, Aquinas defines evil merely as a privation. Now, this is a crucial concept. It means evil is simply a failure, a hole, or a shadow where a natural goodness is missing from a subject. Think about the concept of blindness for a second. Blindness isn't a thing that infects an eye. Blindness is simply the tragic absence of the good of sight that naturally ought to be there. Evil is essentially just a parasite on the good. Breaking this down further in rational creatures like us humans, we see that this privation, this evil, is adequately divided into two categories. First is pain or penalty, which is an involuntary suffering where a good form or integrity is subtracted from us against our will. The second is fault, which is, frankly, far worse. Fault is a failure in our voluntary moral actions. It's when we deliberately choose an action that subtracts from our intended ordered goodness. So as you walk away from this explainer today, having zoomed from the divine blueprint of creation all the way down to the nature of our own faults, I want you to look at the massive struggles around you. Ask yourself this profound 13th century question. When you see evil today, what specific good is actually missing? And more importantly, how can we start putting it back? Thanks so much for exploring this blueprint with us. Catch you next time.